This is Steve Robbins. Welcome to the Get It Done Guys, quick and dirty tips to work less and do more. I'm here today with Jim Karol, author of Ultimate Memory Magic, for a wonderful interview on how we can remember anything. I'm here with Jim Karol, author of the book Ultimate Memory Magic. And Jim's a pretty amazing and impressive guy. We've been chatting before this interview. He's done a gazillion things. He's sort of unbelievable when it comes to the mental powers kind of thing, both real and imaginary, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, Steve, how are you? Pleasure to be here with you.
I am excellent, and I'm all the more excellent because you're here. Now, I was looking through your website, and we were talking a little bit, and one of the things your website says is that you are a mentalist. And for people who don't know what mentalism is, it is people who do acts in which they appear to do amazing feats of mental achievement. They may or may not actually be doing those amazing feats. And you've done things like predicting lottery numbers. You do amazing memory things. For you, where is the line between that? Because it sounds like not only do you do mentalism in the illusionist sense, but you also have some genuine, kind of unbelievable mental disciplines that you've trained yourself to or that have naturally developed. For you, where is that dividing line? Which things can you do for real and which things are an act and are showmanship for you?
That's an excellent question. And to me, all magicians that venture into the world of mentalism, as you said, it's that you're performing feats, extraordinary feats of the mind. And to me, what mentalism really truly means to me now is the exploration of the human mind and its infinite capabilities. That to me is real mentalism. And that's what I'm pursuing right now. And I even actually termed it my own words, Steve. I call it cogmental intelligence, because mentalism combined with the cognitive fitness that I've done on my exercise bike, which we'll get into later, and I call it cogmental intelligence. And that's what I'm doing now. And the real mentalism that I do ventures into the human mind, the memory, and memorizing tens of thousands of bits of information to exercise my brain. And that's what mentalism means to me.
Excellent. So first of all, in terms of just, again, the mystery and the magic, what is the most impressive thing you could do if you were going to walk into a room of 1,000 people and go up on stage? Like, what's your favorite demonstration of mentalism, whether it's a trick or whether it's your actual performance of your genuine mental disciplines or what? What's the thing that you just think is the absolute showstopper that all of us want to hire you to come and do for our gigantic conferences?
Well, I'll tell you what, I just created an idea, and I performed it at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. I won't mention the clientele, but there were 1,600 people there. I had the president of the company come on stage, take out her cell phone, and I had everyone in the audience take out their cell phones. And probably a good portion, probably 95% of the people had phones, and they held them in the air. And I asked the young lady to pick a card. She picked a card, put it in her pocket, did not look at it. And I told her to take her phone and point it at the people and just say, Shazam. This is so cool. I mean, when you see it in person, it's really cool. And she goes, Shazam. And all of a sudden, everybody's phone in the audience starts beeping and buzzing and they all got a text. And the text said, the card in Tracy's pocket is the Queen of Hearts, on all 1,600 phones. It was just bizarre. I mean, it's just these are the kind of things that I like to venture into, the unique, the stuff that no one else is doing. See, I always took a lot of pride in mentalism to do things that no one else can duplicate. And because in the world of magic, as you know, a lot of people copy each other's things and it becomes redundant. So I came up with this idea. I came up with an idea of sticking my hand in a bear trap. I bent 60 penny nails with my hands. So I try to do things no one else does. And that's probably the most unique thing I did was the phone effect with the 1,600 people.
Now, that's really cool. I am assuming that wasn't just done purely through mental effort, but there had to have been some infrastructure there, if only to send out text messages.
Well, it had to do with a couple friends of mine from MIT that taught me how to do something.
All right.
So,
now, the people who are listening to the podcast don't necessarily have that degree of technical infrastructure behind them. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what have you done with just your brain that we can learn to do? Because you told me a pretty amazing story about a medical condition you had, which led to a truly astonishing capability you developed, which has then become, in some ways, the basis for a lot of your life. Can you tell us that story and what happened and what you did? And then we'll get into some of the how-to.
All right. I was traveling around the country doing a lot of college, performing at a lot of colleges, and life was really good. And all of a sudden I developed these chest pains. I went to the doctor and they sent me to a cardiologist, and they told me that I had cardiomyopathy, which is, and they said that I had the heartbeat of like a 93-year-old man. And I said, well, any other good news? He goes, yeah, you have a super enlarged heart, not just an enlarged heart, a super enlarged heart. Right. So I go home and I changed my diet completely. I was worried. I really was, but I didn't go back to the cardiologist. I just didn't, I couldn't accept this. And I went home and I didn't know what to do. So I started exercising on a bike, and the bike was so boring that it's a recumbent bike. And so I took out a deck of cards, which I'm very familiar with all my life. And I started trying to memorize patterns of the cards. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to get off this bike until I could memorize the whole deck. 2.5 hours later, I went through the deck. Now, I didn't remember all of them, but just about all of them. And that was the thing that I started doing every day on the bike. I kept challenging myself and disciplining myself. I can't get off that bike till I have all the cards memorized. Gradually, Steve, believe it or not, I got it down to a minute where I could shuffle the cards up, look through them, and with all the systems I created, memorize the complete deck in 1 minute. Then I started memorizing digits of pi. I was nailing down 100 digits of pi every day. And once again, I disciplined myself. I'm not going to get off this bike till I memorize 100 digits of pi. And I after getting up to thousands and thousands of digits, that became boring. So I started memorizing zip codes and then countries and then capitals, et cetera, et cetera. It's amazing what your brain is capable of. I never knew you can do this.
Now, question, do you use the same system for all of those, or are those different systems?
Different systems I've created. And my favorite system of all was like the basic memory system. They have this anchor system where 1 is a sun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, 4, where you rhyme the word. You remember these rhyming words to the numbers. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, but I want to come up with something more extravagant because I want to remember 100 bits of information and maybe more. So I took out People magazine one day while riding on the bike, and I looked at all the top celebrities and I wrote their names down. And I assigned each celebrity a specific number from 1 to 100. Like, for example, Michael Jordan wears number 23. So I put Michael Jordan at 23. I put Denzel Washington at number 1, Washington being the first president, et cetera, et cetera. And after assigning all these celebrities, I then memorized each celebrity to the corresponding number. And once I had that became my base anchor system. And it's so much easier to put information to a celebrity than like you visualize a celebrity doing these things that you have to memorize or whatever. And the more funny and outrageous the visual picture in your mind, the easier it is to remember. And that's when I stumbled upon the fact about how all your senses can be used. You know, you could use all 5 senses in remembering these things, and it makes it 3 times more powerful that you won't forget it.
Okay, let's, can we jump into this for a minute? And I want to try to make it linear for people who are listening who don't know what an anchor system is. So the purpose of it is to memorize a particular set of things in a particular order, correct?
Correct. Like for example, number 1, I'll just give you a couple. We obviously we don't have time to do 100. So say Denzel Washington was number 1, and you can remember that because Washington was the first president, therefore Washington fits number 1. Number 2 on my list was Brad Pitt. B for Brad, second letter of the alphabet, 2 T's in Pitt, 2 syllables, Brad Pitt. So it's a perfect fit. 3, Tom Cruise. Tom, 3 letters in Tom. Cruise began with a C. So therefore it was easy to remember Tom Cruise for 3. 4, I put George Foreman. George Foreman 4, easy to remember. And then 5, Michael J. Fox. My television station at home here is Fox 5, so that was an easy fit for me. And then the last one we use is Chris Rock. Chris Rock, I put at 6. Once again, it fit for me. It may not fit for you or your listeners, but they could assign anything they want. They could assign insects. It could be celebrities. It could be movies. Mine was Chris Rock because I got hit in the head with a rock when I was 6 years old, and I'll never forget that. And so knowing these celebrities now, say, for example, you want to learn the first 6 states of the Union. Well, the first state of the Union is Delaware. Just visualize Washington crossing the Delaware, but not George Washington, Denzel Washington. So therefore, you have a funny picture, all right? The second state of the Union is Pennsylvania. If you remember, Brad Pitt was 2, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 3 was Tom Cruise. Visualize Tom Cruise cruising the Jersey shoreline, Wildwood, Cape May, Atlantic City. 4, George Foreman, Georgia. Georgia was the 4th state. 5th, Michael J. Fox. If you live in New England, Foxwoods Casino happens to be in Connecticut. Connecticut happens to be the 5th state. And the last one, Chris Rock, Plymouth Rock, Mass. Mass is the 6th state. And I just went on and on and on and developed these things. And it was so clever, so cool, easy to remember. And in fact, it's so easy that I took a wounded warrior down at Walter Reed, and who the doctor said there was no hope for his memory. He memorized the first 13 states of the Union in one 40-minute class. So I know this works, and it's all in that book, Ultimate Memory Magic, the whole thing. And that's why I wrote the book.
Excellent. Okay, so that's a way if we need to remember a list of things. So yes. It sounds like first we need to put together our basic and you call it an anchor system. So first we need that anchor list of celebrities that we always have in the same order and we always know what they are. And then we attach other things to those. So if number 1 is George Washington and we want to remember a new list of things, let's say we want to remember a list of books. And one of the books is Harry Potter. We might make a mental image of George Washington reading Harry Potter. And so then when we think about George Washington, up comes Harry Potter. And we're like, okay, that's the first book. And then if Brad Pitt is number 2, and maybe the next book that we want to remember is Ultimate Memory Magic, we have a picture of Brad Pitt holding up the book and like scrunching his face up and like with a memory bubble coming out of his head. And
and wearing a magic hat or something. Yeah. That's it. It's so clever, isn't it? And here's the cool thing. Say you want to memorize countries. Like it's almost automatic. Like say Costa Rica, you put at number 6. Why? Because Chris Rock, Costa Rica. It almost sounds like Chris Rock in Spanish. I mean, it is so clever. This system is so clever, and I just love it. And it has nothing to do with, like, if you say you want to remember names, because that's the most embarrassing thing. You walk up to somebody, Jim, how you doing? They go, hey. And I'm like, what's his name? And you feel so bad when you don't remember the person's name. So I came up with ideas of how to remember names. I have a bunch of them in the book, all right? But here's a clever way to do it. Like, say I'm meeting you for the first time, all right? So hey, what's your name? My name's Steve Robbins. Right? Now, what first thing I do is I'll go like this. I'll focus Steve Robbins. I go, I'll repeat it. Steve Robbins. And now, is that like Steve? Is that like Stever, Steve? And you'll say, yeah. And Robbins, Robbins. You'll go, yeah. And now I just reinforced it 3 times in my head, giving it multiple imprints, and it will triple the chance of me not forgetting your name. And then when you tell me you're the get it done guy, I connect it with that. Now, if I'm meeting you in person, then I connect it with your features of your face. It is so easy to do this. It's just all focus, Steve. You have to focus at the time when you meet that person. If you're focused and you do that and repeat their name and possibly even spell it out, I guarantee you won't forget the name.
Okay.
And it's really clever.
So when you say focus, like what exactly do you focus on? Because I used to also do a lot of public speaking. And one of the things that I quickly just abandon any pretense of being able to remember anyone's name, because if 100 people come up and talk to you, for me. And so what happens is I will have people come to me on the street and say, hey, Steve, I saw that talk you gave. I'm like, you did? They're like, yeah, it was 2006. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I don't remember your name, but you only had to memorize one of me. How do you, like if you're in a busy, crowded environment where you're being introduced to a lot of people sequentially, how do you do that fast enough? Like, do you actually have to stop and like with each one look and choose some distinguishing feature about them? Like, how do you figure out what to focus on?
Okay, that's a good question too, Steve. Now, what I do Okay, that's a totally different method. So what I would do is I would go back to my anchor system and that I already have names in place. So I automatically, when I meet you, like if I would meet you and I don't have time because you're with a group of other people and I don't really get a chance to do everything. Steve, how you doing, Steve? I would put you, and I have to remember your name. I'll put you at number 26. I'd say number 26. You're number 26 to me. Okay, so when I go back to number 26 on my list, number 26 on my list is Steven Tyler. I would put you with Steven Tyler. It's just bizarre. I mean, I did this with a bunch of doctors down in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and the guy's name was Dr. Schwartz. I go, how you doing, sir? What's your name? Dr. Schwartz. Boom, 17 came to my mind. So now he's number 17 to me. So now if I have to remember his name, 17th on my list is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and bing, Dr. Schwartz will come into my head. It just works. It really does. It is very clever. It works.
So it sounds like what you're doing is
no one can remember it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're using a combination of things that sound alike and the anchor system and the visuals. And you're not necessarily always saying, oh, this is the next person in line, so they get the next number. You might say, this is the next person in line. This is their name. It's similar to this other name that's already on my list. So instead of necessarily going sequentially, you put them in whatever peg is going to be easiest to remember for that person. Am I correct?
Exactly. Yes, you're exactly right. And then I'll do the opposite. Like I said, what I do now is instead of using celebrities, I use movies because I found movies could be much, much more emotional and you could put more information into a movie. Like your name, Steve Robbins, to me, that's the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Don't ask me why, but that's where I would put you and say, I meet you a year from now, Steve. A year from now, we bump into each other in Boston. Jim, what was that movie you gave me on my podcast? I'll remember Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Don't ask me how I do it. It's just automatic. And that's what happens. In order to get to this level, you have to start somewhere, get this mental matrix, which I like to call it. And once that forms, things just stick. The more you have to stick things to, the easier it is.
So, dude,
and that's kind of what I'm doing.
This is where that real mentalism stuff comes in, because Charlie and the Chocolate Factory happens to have been one of my favorite all-time movies. And I did not tell you that before this conversation.
No, you did not.
Oh, yes. I can sing the Oompa Loompa song with the best of them. So, another thing that in the modern day, it occurred to me when the hurricane hit Puerto Rico a couple years ago and wiped out their power grid for the most part, I realized I no longer remember phone numbers because I trust my phone to remember phone numbers. And if there were any sort of natural disaster, I would be in real trouble because I'd be like, oh my gosh, I know like 2 phone numbers and that's it. And I've decided I want to start remembering phone numbers again. But of course, I kind of have to relearn how to do that, especially because, my phone does the phone numbers for me. So my brain almost doesn't even want to learn it. How do I remember phone numbers? Tell me, please.
That's I'll tell you, because like exactly the smartphones, in some ways they make us smarter, but in some ways they make us dumber. I mean, I don't know my best friend's phone numbers or my what because I just plug it in and punch it in on my phone. So what I do to remember numbers, I'll go back to remembering the pi. All right, like when I had to memorize pi, 100 digits of pi every day. So what I would do is I would chunk it, but what I call it is super chunking. It's like, believe it or not, well, like for example, pi. When you do pi 3, 1, 4, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 2, 5, 8, 9, 7, 9, 3, 2, 3, 8, 4, 6, 2, 6, 4, 3, 2, 8, 3. There, so many things appear in pi that are familiar to you in your life, and it makes it much easier to remember. Like in pi, just the numbers I just said: 3, 1, 4, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 2, 5, 8. Like 5, 3, 5, 8. 5, 3 is when I was born. 5, 8 is when my wife was born. I mean, you just got to chunk things together. And it's almost like a rhythm, a song forms in your head, like 3, 1, 4, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 2, 5, 8, 9, 7, 9, 3, 2, 3, 8, 4, 6. Notice I go 2, 3. It's almost like Mandarin. It's in tones and everything else. It's so exciting to learn. It really is. Developing these systems and these numbers. It's just, and you have to have to be focused. Obviously, with the numbers, you have to focus. You have to pay attention to the focus.
Now that's
talking to
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's interesting because when you're describing memorizing the numbers, you're describing that entirely in auditory terms. You're saying you have a tempo. You're using tone to do it. Is there a visual component too, or do you just do it as almost a song?
It's really amazing because I just spoke at MIT on this about 3 weeks ago. I was and I talked about synesthesia, and I talked about how I truly believe that you can develop synesthesia. You're not just born with it. Because right now, when I was just doing 3, 1, 4, and 5, as I'm doing the numbers, I am now forcing myself to remember the numbers with colors. It's like bizarre, but you got to start somewhere. That's the key, Stephen. You have to start because the more we get into this and the more we get into the advanced stuff, it's like you trying to explain physics to someone that never had algebra or calculus in school. I mean, it's almost impossible. That's why you have to start somewhere in the beginning, and then it's just so joyful how everything just falls in place. And you're talking to a guy that worked in a steel mill. I have no formal education. I mean, so anyone can do this. Anyone can do this, but it takes passion. You have to really want to do it, and you can do this.
So you were just mentioning like synesthesia, and also the need to start somewhere. If I want to learn to memorize pi to 1,000 digits, what do I train myself in first, and then how do I do that?
Okay, the best way of that would take me about 25 minutes to explain this. That best thing that goes in the book. You go, Ultimate Memory Magic. I talk about this. This is the first thing I talk about. And so like when I did the bike, okay, when I recited the pi 314, it's a totally different effect from the anchor system because it's hard to put the numbers to the words with that. So now what I'm trying to do now is I did it by combining playing cards. See, and now when I look at things, I use the playing. It's hard to see right now. I'm going to start talking, and people aren't going to understand. I mean, it's getting
so how would you teach me to do it? Like and let's just go back to phone numbers because I don't need to memorize pi to 1,000. If a friend of mine comes up and I say, "What's your number?" and they say it's 617-555-1212, how do I remember that?
617-555-1212. I would just see. To me, it's natural now, so it's really hard to. But what I would do is I would chunk it. 617, bingo. Now instantly I know this Massachusetts. All right, and then you said 555. That would be easy. That's another chunk. And then 1212. So it's just chunking. I chunk it, and the more you develop an anchor system, is what I'm saying, Steve. The more powerful your anchor system becomes, the more powerful your chunking comes. It's really bizarre. Like if I would teach somebody how to chunk, but I show someone else my anchor system and teach them that, and then teach them how to chunk, the person that has the anchor system now will chunk and remember it a lot easier than the person that doesn't. So the anchor system is the key. You know what I mean? It's
so once you establish the anchor system, your brain will start to use that to be able to organize everything. So you'll naturally begin doing this better just across the board.
It stimulates neuroplasticity, new connections in your brain. Everything just starts working better. Like it just, and now I'm developing systems, but everything is based on, you have to start. You have to walk before you can run. Everything begins with that anchor system, no matter what it is. It doesn't have to be movies. It doesn't have to be celebrities, or it definitely doesn't have to be my celebrities or my movies. It could be your own personal favorites. And it doesn't even have to be that. Like I said, if you want to use insects or flowers or birds as your anchor system, I used movies because I wanted to remember massive amounts of information while I was on this bike. And once I began, Stever, there was nothing stopping me. Like if you see what I'm doing now, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, now it's up for 1,000 to 10,000 movies memorized. Each number and each movie represents a minimum of 272 different things. That's my matrix that I formed in 14 years doing this exercise.
How?
It's crazy, buddy. But I'll tell you what, if people would know this before they go to school and everything else, like these med students and these nursing students, like I talked to a bunch of students from Seton Hall, nursing students, I taught them the skeletal system in one day. It takes a semester to learn that. I mean, and it's just amazing what your brain is capable of. And I did not know this until 50 years old.
So you can start this at any age, it sounds like, because I mean, 50 is usually when people are starting to wait to die. I mean,
no, my God, life don't begin till 60. Trust me when I tell you that. I mean, I'm 66 right now, and I got the brain age of a 39-year-old guy, they tell me from the studies, but I don't even care about that. It's the energy that I have and everything. See, with this newfound brain comes energy and everything else, and you have the ability to heal yourself. It's amazing what you develop. I mean, this is like, I can't even explain it in words what's happening right now. And you almost could manifest anything you want. It's bizarre what your brain is capable of, but people don't know this because, like you said, they hit 55, they think, oh man, they think they're going downhill. And no, you're not. I think your brain is more powerful with age. The older you get, I think the more powerful, but you have to use it or you'll lose it. Whoever came up with that, use it or lose it, they are right on.
Okay, so then we have to all get to using it or losing it. And it sounds like the first thing we have to do is create a PEG system. And we can use the PEG system to memorize lists of stuff. We can then use all the different sensory systems. Sometimes it's a sound alike, sometimes it's a visual, to be able to begin to associate things. So if we want to remember names, say, maybe we remember them in sequential order, but maybe we also remember them using the sound alike, because once you have Chris Rock, that's similar enough to Costa Rica that you can match the two. Choosing PEG or choosing anchors that are something you're emotionally attached to, because here we were talking about celebrities, but I could imagine someone who's a foodie attaching it to food ingredients, or
exactly,
or favorite dishes or recipes or something. And then for memorizing phone numbers, a lot of that is chunking, giving it a rhythm, giving it a tempo, and these are all related, because as you get good at some of them, the others will start to get good too, just because your brain is going to be exercising that whole you call it a matrix, and you then say there's 600 dimensions and my brain explodes. So
yeah. And like I said, the stronger that mental matrix is, that anchor system, the stronger everything else becomes around it. And now I can read books and I'll remember things easier. Now I have, but it's actually developing like a sixth sense. Like my art of deception, detection, and observational skills, they're getting so powerful. That's why I came up with the word cognitive intelligence. That's where I teach the deception detection and all this other stuff. It's amazing what your brain is capable of. And it all starts with Ultimate Memory Magic is a good start. They could even get a copy of the audiobook wherever audiobooks are sold. This is a place to start. And I don't know where it's going from here, but the next book is going to be 10 times better even. It's just It's bizarre what I have in my head.
So where do people find you to hire you or ask you questions or do whatever it is they want to do?
Yeah, just my name, Jim Karol, Karol, JimKarol.com. Simple website, JimKarol.com.
And we can get Ultimate Memory Management anywhere, or Ultimate Memory Magic anywhere.
Yeah, you could get Ultimate Memory Magic at Barnes & Noble, bookstores all around. They all sell it, and plus you could get it on Amazon.com. It's anywhere. And the thing is, I'm just starting, Stever. This website that I have, JimKarol.com, is going to become so interactive with people. It's going to grow and grow and grow, because I just want to help everybody. Like right now, I help wounded warriors with PTSD. I help people with traumatic brain injury. I'm helping athletes suffering from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and Alzheimer's and dementia. Boy, that's running rapid right now. Anybody where their brain is deteriorating, I can help with this memory. I think it's all about ESPN, exercise, your body and your brain, most importantly. S for proper sleep. Sleep is so important. I can't emphasize. I know a lot of people go around, I could go with 2 hours of sleep. Oh yeah, well, you got this thing called your lymphatic system that cleans out your brain, cleans all that garbage out of your brain when you go into a deep sleep. It's so important to get sleep. And then ESP, the P is very, very important. That's the power of positive thinking, positive thought, positive memories. I can't emphasize how important that is. And then obviously the N for nutrition. And that's how you stumble upon the fountain of mental youth, ESPN. I'm serious. This really works.
Excellent. Well, you know what? We will have to do that in a future episode or a future interview. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, everyone, you can find Jim Karol at JimKarol, KAROL.com. And thank you for joining us. We're going to go off and we're going to work less and do more and have a great life.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. I look forward to meeting you down the road.
My pleasure. If you'd like to check out Jim's book, go to getitdoneguy.com/memory, and it will take you right to the audiobook. That's getitdoneguy.com/memory. I'm Steve Robbins. Follow Get It Done Guy on Twitter and Facebook, and if you want to get things done like a pro, check out Get It Done groups, and they'll give you accountability, do-it days, productivity tools, and community support. You can learn more at getitdonegroups.com. Work less, do more, and have a great life.